Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Shripad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Shrutarajata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhaishana Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Shrutarajata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samavita Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 2, Text 35, which is the last text in this chapter. Okay, please repeat. Aplutya vritam vabhritam yatra. Aplutya vabhritam yatra. Ganga Yamunayanvita. Ganga Yamunayanvita. Virajenatmana sarve. Virajenatmana sarve. Svam svam dhama yayustataha. Svam svam dhama yayustataha. Aplutya vabhritam yatra. Ganga Yamunayanvita. Virajenatmana sarve. Svam svam dhama yayustataha. Aplutya, taking a bath. Avabhritam, the bath which is taken after performing sacrifices. Yatra, where? Ganga, the river Ganges. Yamunaya, by the river Yamuna. Anvita, mixed. Virajena, without infection. Atmana, by the mind. Sarve, all. Svam svam, their respective. Dhama, abodes. Yayuhu, went. Tataha, from there. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, my dear Vidura, carrier of bows and arrows, all the demigods who were performing the sacrifice took their bath at the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna after completing the yagya performance. Such a bath is called Avabrita Snan. After thus becoming purified in heart, they departed for their respective abodes. Purport. After Lord Shiva and previously Daksha left the arena of sacrifice, the sacrifice was not stopped. The sages went on for many years in order to satisfy the Supreme Lord. The sacrifice was not destroyed for want of Shiva and Daksha, and the sages went on with their activities. In other words, it may be assumed that if one does not worship the demigods, even up to Lord Shiva and Brahma, one can nevertheless satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.20. Kamaistaister hritagyana prapadyanya devata. Persons who are impelled by lust and desire to go to the demigods to derive some material benefit. Bhagavad Gita uses the very specific words nasti buddhi, meaning persons who have lost their intelligence, their sense of intelligence. Only such persons care for demigods and want to derive material benefit from them. Of course, this does not mean that one should not show respect to the demigods, but there is no need to worship them. One who is honest may be faithful to the government, but he does not need to bribe the government servants. Bribery is illegal. One does not bribe a government servant, but that does not mean that one does not show him respect. Similarly, one who engages in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord does not need to worship any demigod, nor does he have any tendency to show disrespect to the demigods. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 9.23, it is stated, Yepi anya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaha. The Lord says that anyone who worships the demigods is also worshipping him, but he is worshipping aviddhipurvakam, which means without following the regulative principles. The regulative principle is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Worship of demigods may indirectly be worship of the Personality of Godhead, but it is not regulated. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, one automatically serves all the demigods, because they are parts and parcels of the whole. If one supplies water to the root of a tree, all the parts of the tree, such as the leaves and branches, are automatically satisfied. And if one supplies food to the stomach, all the limbs of the body, the hands, legs, fingers, etc., are nourished. Thus, by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can satisfy all the demigods. But by worshipping all the demigods, one does not completely worship the Supreme Lord. Therefore, worship of the demigods is irregular, and it is disrespectful to the scriptural injunctions. In this age of Kali, it is practically impossible to perform the Deva Yagya, or sacrifices to the demigods. As such, in this age, Srimad Bhagavatam recommends Sankirtan Yagya, Yagye Sankirtana Prayir, Yajanti Hi Sumedasa, Bhagavatam 11.5.32. In this age, the intelligent person completes the performances of all kinds of yagyas simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tasmin tushte jagat tushta. When Lord Vishnu is satisfied, all the demigods, who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are satisfied. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 2nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Daksha curses Lord Shiva. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for coming this morning to Srimad Bhagavatam class. When I was reading the purport, especially in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada mentioned something very significant. He says that in any case, sacrifices should not be stopped. And that's something that Lord Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita as well. That even though saintly people may be fully purified, still, in any situation, time, place, circumstance, they should not give up yajna, dan, and tapasya. So sacrifice, giving charity to other people, and performing austerities. And Srila Prabhupada goes on to say that, see, great personalities in this yajna were offended. They took offense. Daksha himself, Lord Shiva's followers, headed by Nandishwar, the Brahmanas headed by Bhrigu, and some of them left the arena of the sacrifice. But Srila Prabhupada mentions that they continued on with the sacrifice for many, many years. So Prabhupada mentions that even at the cost of not satisfying great demigods, even up to Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, one can still nevertheless satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So if a sacrifice is aimed at pleasing Krishna, then in any case it should not be stopped. And as I was reading that, I was thinking about our yajna that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Obviously, Srila Prabhupada mentions at the end of this purport that the yajna for us is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But specifically, Srila Prabhupada has given us Sankirtan yajna. And he said that the best way to perform this Sankirtan yajna is through Brihat Mridanga, through distributing transcendental literatures, which not only contain the Maha Mantra, but they contain Krishna's Naam, Gun, Roop, and Leela as well. So it's fully encompassing. So as I was reading the purport about how yajna should not be stopped, I remember how many times on book distribution we come across situations where we think we should stop. Like a security guard might come and tell us to get out of this place, or police might come sometimes. We were in a car park in Sydney's southwest actually, doing book distribution in a car park. And someone, this was many, many years back, someone, I don't know, got scared or something, didn't know what we were doing, speculated. So they called the SWAT car. So after some 10, 15 minutes, one SWAT car was circling the car park, and they stopped and they asked me, "What are you doing?" "I'm just distributing books." "Oh, that's okay, that's fine, continue." Once in one of Sydney's inner west suburbs, again we were distributing books, and there was one crazy guy. We had our trolley set down, And there was one homeless man, a bit crazy in his mind, and he had some weapon. It wasn't a knife, some sharp weapon he had. And I was on one side of the street, and another devotee that I was with, he was on the other side of the street where the trolley was. And that side of the street was where that crazy man was. So that other devotee I was with, he was distributing books in front of this crazy guy, because there were so many people there. And obviously that guy got a bit envious, a bit mad, and he started chasing this devotee with this weapon that he had in his hand. So what to do? The devotee just, instinctively just ran. And where did he run? He ran into a pub. So you see, Nityananda Prabhu also used to run into pubs and used to roll on the floor and beg people to chant Hare Krishna. Of course, he can do that. We may not be able to do such things. So he ran into a pub and for shelter, running into a pub for shelter, a devotee. And then he couldn't go inside. The crazy man couldn't go inside because at the door there was a bouncer. And then this crazy guy who was circling our trolley outside. So I was on the other side of the street and I was seeing all this. And I couldn't cross the street because there's a lot of traffic. So I was just watching this whole thing. And then I called the devotee who was inside the pub. Hey, are you okay, Prabhu? What should we do now? Are you okay? Should we continue? What should we do? So I said, yeah, okay, we'll continue. So then after some time, after the guy calmed down a little bit, that devotee who was inside the pub, he asked the bouncer to come out with him. So they both came out of the pub together, and he helped us to get our trolley. And then we took, the station was nearby, so then we got into one of the trains, went to the next suburb, and then we started again. So in this way, in yagyas, this is the modern day yagya, an example, where anything can happen, some obstacle can happen. Yesterday we were at the kite festival. The first time we went to the kite festival, it was in Castle Hill. And everyone was like, generally when you're doing book distribution, you stop someone, the other person looks at you, right? But yesterday we were distributing books in a festival where people weren't looking at us because they're looking up in the air because everyone was flying kites. So it was very difficult. And the starting was really difficult. And when many people came, we had to choose people who were not looking, who were not busy looking up into the air. Because even if the person's interested, he's got this kite in his hand and it's like far up in the air. He doesn't want it to come crashing down on the other people. So we had to pick and choose people. So there's difficulties. But if the sacrifice is aimed at pleasing Lord Vishnu, then we should continue nevertheless. And Srila Prabhupada mentions why that is so. Because if you read this, in fact, just read the translation, the last sentence of the translation, it says, after thus becoming purified in heart. So that is the purpose. Puta mad bhavam agata. Lord Krishna mentions that many people in the past, they practiced Krishna consciousness so that they could purify their hearts, and having purified their hearts, they come back to me. Now, Madan Mohan Prabhu, I think last week he was giving class, and he mentioned one very nice point, one very nice analogy that I liked. He gave the example of milk. If you want to drink milk, and unfortunately if the milk comes in contact with some sour substance, then it can curdle, and it can separate into two things. One is like the paneer, and one is the whey, which is the liquid. For someone who wants to drink milk, both of these things are undesirable. So he explained that the milk represents the pure state of the living entity, the liberated soul, jiva, in relationship with Krishna, who's attained Krishna prema. But then when we come in contact with the mature world and the false ego, then this original Krishna prema that we once had, it disintegrates, it gets covered over and separates into two things, he said. One was irja and one was kama. Kama means lust, or the desire for enjoying our senses separately, independently from Krishna. And the other thing he said, the second thing, was irja, which means envy. And he said the difference between the two is that kama, or lust, is inwardly directed. Because we want to satisfy ourselves. We want to exploit the resources that Krishna has provided in the mature world for ourselves. So lust is just focused on us, satisfying ourselves. But envy, that's outwardly directed. So false ego is so powerful. We can discuss this false ego actually. Because here we see in this chapter great personalities. These are not ordinary people. Like Daksha, Lord Shiva, and Bhrigu, they're all brothers, actually. But why are they arguing? Why are they fighting? Lord Shiva is not, but Lord Shiva's followers. Nandishwar still is a great devotee as well. Still, nevertheless, they're arguing. Why are they arguing? That is because of the influence of false ego. So I was reading recently in the 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have 2 different types of creation, right? We have Sarga and Visarga. Sarga creation is done by who? Which person does Sarga creation? Lord Vishnu does Sarga creation. And Visarga is done by Lord Brahma. So let's understand where this false ego comes from. So initially we have Pradhan. So if you read Bhagavad Gita, Pradhan is like this undifferentiated material energy. Then Lord Mahavishnu, he glances at the Pradhan and he activates the Pradhan so that it can now separate itself out into different material elements. So this is the beginning of what is called Mahatattva. And Lord Vishnu creates from the Pradhan 2 things come. 2 initial things come, which is the basis of the creation of the material world. Can anyone tell me what these 2 things are? What are the 2 things, the 2 constituents, which are the basis of this whole material world? One is false ego, ahankar. No, not the mind. Something else. Who knows? Do you know, Prabhu? Prabhu? 3 modes of material nature. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So the 3 gunas. So the false ego, ahankar is created, and then the 3 gunas are created. Now what happens is that each one of these 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they have like a reaction with ahankar. So when mode of goodness, Sattva gun, it has a reaction with the ahankar, that's called Vaikarika. The mind is created. When the false ego interacts with the mode of passion, the intelligence is created, buddhi is created. Not only buddhi, but the senses, the 10 senses are created. The 5 jnanindriyas and the 5 karmendriyas are created. And that is called Taijasa. When mode of passion interacts with false ego, it's called Taijasa. When the false ego interacts with Tamas, the mode of ignorance, that's called Tamasa. Then what is created? The Pancha Mahabhuta, which is the 5 material elements, which are earth, fire, air, water, ether. And then the 5 objects of the senses, which is called the Pancha Tanmatra. Sight, sound, touch, smell, and form. So these are the building blocks of this whole material world. And the scientists in our present day context are busy studying these 24 elements of Sankhya. And this is something we had discussed in the previous canto, where Lord Kapila was explaining the philosophy of Sankhya Yoga to his mother, Devahuti. Now, we understand that these 24 elements of Sankhya are created from Ahankar and the 3 gunas. What happens when these 24 elements are created? That's explained. What happens is that Lord Vishnu again glances for a second time at these 24 elements of Sankhya, and they combine together to form a universe in a tiny egg-shaped form, Brahmanda. So many millions and billions, countless universes are formed. So these elements, they come together in different ways, and all these tiny elements, all these tiny universes, Brahmandas, are created, and they start to float on the Karna Sagar, the causal ocean. And it's explained that this universe, in its baby form, it looks like a shining golden egg. And it's floating on the water for 1,000 years. Then what happens is that Mahavishnu, he expands himself into Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and he enters into each one of these universes. And then that is the beginning of Visarga creation. That is the beginning of Brahma's creation. Then what happens? Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is lying. So half of the universe is filled with water. That is the perspiration of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So he's lying on that water. Then from his navel comes, from his Padmanabh comes a lotus flower. Brahma takes birth. And then Brahma gets the instruction to do tapasya. So he does tapasya. And then, again, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu blesses him so that he can start his Visarga creation. So in the beginning of the creation, Lord Brahma, Visarga creation, the secondary creation, Lord Brahma is very, very morose. He's very, very disappointed. He's very, very upset. He's very sad. Why? Because all the jivas which are to take birth in this universe, he has to cover them up again with the false ego, with ahankar. So remember, ahankar was the cause of the sarga creation and is also the cause of the visarga creation by Brahma as well. And Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto explains different elements of the false ego. We have tamas, tamisra, andhatamisra, moha, and mahamoha. You probably, if you have read Srimad Bhagavatam, you probably know this. So tamisra means envy. Every single living entity in this mature world has envy. You may think you are a very nice person, you're a very charitable person, you have good manners, this, that. But according to the scriptures, according to the Shastra, the reason why we are here in this mature world enjoying separately from Krishna is because we have some degree of envy. We want to enjoy separately from Krishna. So that is something that we have inherently within us, envy. Then we have andhatamisra. Andhatamisra is the fear of death. None of us wants to die. But death is forced upon us. Why? Because we are the eternal soul. The soul does not die. But death is forced upon us and none of us wants to die. So this fear of death is called andhatamisra. Then comes tamas. Tamas is misidentifying ourselves to be this body. When we misidentify ourselves to be this body of matter, then we look for happiness in material things as well. Whether it's money, houses, cars, technology. But because we are not matter, and because we are not our mind, no amount of material amenities or whatever will satisfy us. It will not satisfy us. It is only when we realize we are the soul, the Atma, the Jiva, and we start bhakti, that's when we'll really be satisfied. Yei samsparsha jabhoga. What is it? Yei samsparsha jabhoga. Dukkha yona yevate. Adyantavanta kontya nate shuramate buddha. Those who are wise, they don't engage in looking for happiness in material things. Why? Because they know that they have a beginning and they have an end. So those who are wise persons, those who actually have buddhi, intelligence, they engage in performing activities where the happiness keeps increasing. In the beginning it's happiness, then you keep performing that activity, you get more happiness, and each and every single day as you perform that activity, your happiness keeps increasing and it doesn't stop. It's not like in this mature world. Some days are good, some days are bad. You have duality. So that is only possible in bhakti. When we start practicing Krishna consciousness, we are happy in the start, and each day we practice, we keep getting more and more happy. That is tamas, misidentification. Then comes moha. Moha means thinking all these material things that we have, our family, our wealth, our houses, the clothes we wear, thinking that all of these things actually belong to us. We all know that we come into this world with nothing and we leave this world with nothing. But for the tiny amount of time that we are here, we think that everything belongs to us. So that is called moha. And then the fifth covering that Brahma has to create in the Visarga creation is Mahamoha. Mahamoha is this intense thirst, intense desire to satisfy ourselves separately from Krishna. I want this, I want that. That thirst that drives us, that motivation that drives us to achieve things in this material world, material things. That is called Mahamoha. So everyone is covered by these 5 coverings. And that's why Brahma is very morose at the start of his creation. So I want to explain, and that is the very reason why even great souls like Daksha and Brigu, they're also covered by these 5 coverings of the false ego. And that's why even though actually they're self-controlled, sometimes we see that even great souls are subject to these 5 coverings of the false ego. Now I want to explain one example from Shastra. It's from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where someone got offended, but they got offended on the right basis. So here we see that Daksha, what happens? Daksha is entering the assembly of the yagya, and everyone gets up except for Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. And because Lord Shiva doesn't get up, Daksha gets offended. He thinks he's my son-in-law should respect me. Why isn't he getting up? So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purports earlier in the chapter that everyone in the assembly forgot themselves. They identified themselves with the body. And because Daksha identified himself with the body, he thought he was a great person, and he actually thought that Lord Shiva was his son-in-law, and that's why he took offense. Now, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, an example is given of one devotee of Lord Nityananda. His name is Miniketan Ramdas. You have read the story of Miniketan Ramdas? So Miniketan Ramdas was a very, very pure devotee of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And one day, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who is the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he invited Miniketan Ramdas to come to his house. They were having a kirtan program. And it's explained that when Miniketan Ramdas, he came and entered Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's house, he was so overwhelmed in ecstatic love for Krishna that he was exhibiting all the Ashta Satvika Bhav. Throngs of people used to come and fall at his feet. And as they were paying obeisance to him, he had a flute actually, Miniketan Ramdas. He used to touch people with his flute. Sometimes it's explained that he even used to stand on people as they were paying obeisance to him. He was in such ecstasy. Very avadut type of behavior. But everyone respected him because he was a pure devotee of Krishna. He was a pure devotee of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Now, when he entered Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's house, again, everyone got up, just like in this Daksha Yagya, and they paid obeisances to Miniketan Ramdas, except for one person. And that was the Pujari. His name was Gunarnava Mishra. And even though everyone was bowing down to Miniketan Ramdas, he continued doing his puja. And then what did Miniketan Ramdas say? He got angry. And he said, here we have another Romaharshana Sutta who doesn't pay respect to people who have that caliber. And Miniketan Ramdas, he took offense. Now, he didn't take offense for himself. Why isn't this Pujari Gunarnava Vishnu paying obeisances to me? I'm such a great devotee. No. Miniketan Ramdas genuinely considered himself to be a representative of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is no other than Balaram himself. So he thought to himself that because Gunarnava Mishra, this Pujari, is not respecting me, indirectly he's not respecting Lord Nityananda. So here we see an example which is based not on false ego, but on actual ego, real ego, of being a servant of Krishna. And it's explained that later that evening, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he had a brother, and his brother had great faith in Lord Chaitanya. But he didn't have much faith in Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And again, Miniketan Ramdas, he came to know this. And because he was such a great devotee of Lord Nityananda, again he took offense. And it's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that by thinking that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are different, giving favor, giving worship to one but neglecting the other, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami's brother, it's explained he was doomed. So this is the result of offending Vaishnavas. This is the result of disrespecting Brahmanas, disrespecting Vaishnavas. Yesterday I was hearing a lecture by His Holiness Indra Maharaj about the pastimes of Rupa Goswami and the Govindaji temple. It's a very famous series of lectures, 12 parts, really amazing. Maharaj goes into a lot of details there. And he was explaining, you have probably all heard of Aurangzeb, the great Mughal ruler. So he had his kingdom in Agra, but sometimes he used to come to Mathura, which is nearby. And one day while he was in Mathura, he saw at a distance one temple. That was the Radha Govinda temple. And it was lit up because it was Ekadashi. Now the tradition in Jagannath Puri, in the Jagannath temple, is that every Ekadashi, they light the temple with hundreds and hundreds of lamps. I don't know if they do it now, at least back then that was the tradition, 500 years ago. So in the same way, Lord Govindaji's temple in Vrindavan, it was beautifully lit up. So in the distance, he's seeing from Mathura, he's looking from the terrace of one building that he's standing, and he's seeing that Lord Govindaji's temple is lit up. And he asks his servant, what is this, his minister, what is this temple that is taller than a mosque? And he explains that is Govindaji's temple. Then after some time, Aurangzeb, he orders what is called a black decree. So all the shrines, all the Hindu temples within his kingdom, he orders them to be destroyed. At that time, there is one Rajput who is actually serving in the kingdom of Aurangzeb, and he hears this. So immediately, as he hears this, because Aurangzeb is about to send his army to Vrindavan, from Mathura to Vrindavan, and it's not going to take long, probably 2-3 hours for them to march there. They have horses as well. So immediately, this Rajput, when he hears this, he gets on his horse. His horse's name is called Pavan. Maharaj explained, Pavan means like wind. And literally that horse was like as fast as the wind. That's how fast he got onto his horse, Pavan, and he immediately went to Vrindavan to inform the pujari at Radha Govinda temple. So there were two things that the pujaris and the devotees in Vrindavan, they hid from the army of Aurangzeb that was coming to Vrindavan. One was obviously the deities, the murtis of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. And the second thing was the Shastra. The 6 Goswamis had written immense amounts of literatures. So the Brajabasis, they wanted to protect these literatures. So they put these in a case and they actually hid them. They didn't have time to think where to put them. So nearby there was Govinda Kund. Now we know Govinda Kund as being near Govardhan Hill. This is another Govinda Kund actually. And at that time it was just full of mud. So they hid the deity of Govindaji and they hid the Shastra written by the Goswamis in this mud. And Aurangzeb's army came, and it's explained a really horrendous scene where like so many Vaishnavas, they were embracing the pillars, not wanting the army to destroy the temple. But mercilessly, these Vaishnavas, they were slaughtered actually. And Aurangzeb's army, they took all the jewels from the temple itself, and many of the Rajput kings like King Man Singh from Jaipur, he used to visit that temple because he had, in association with King Akbar previously, he had built that temple. So Aurangzeb's army came, and these Jaipur kings, they had left immense amounts of treasure in big treasure chests. So they stole all this treasure as well. So Aurangzeb, as part of his black decree, had ordered that the 7 stories of this building be dismantled. It took 2 months, whole months, for Aurangzeb's army to dismantle the top 4 levels of the temple. And then 3 levels were remaining. Actually, Aurangzeb had ordered his army to demolish the entire Radha Govinda temple. But to this day, 3 levels are still remaining, and it still remains an amazing piece of architecture. If you go there, I don't know if any of you have been to Vrindavan, Govindaji temple. It's amazing. If you just circle around it, You just look at, you'll just be in awe and reverence. Now, the question might be asked, why did 3 levels of the temple remain? Why did Aurangzeb not tell his army to destroy the whole temple? So what happened is, every single day, Aurangzeb would get reports from his generals in Vrindavan as to the progress of the destruction of his temple. So it was so cruel, actually, his mind. So what happened one day while he was praying in one mosque in Mathura, it's explained, the scribes, they write that there was a big earthquake in Mathura. Just out of the blue, there was a big earthquake in Mathura. And then 1,000 bees, they came and they started chasing Aurangzeb. And they started to sting him. And he was in such great pain, such great agony. Immediately he ran inside the mosque to take shelter from these bees. And he went to one Vaidya, he went to one, like a doctor who was there inside, his doctor. And he asked his doctor, and he was a very pious Muslim. He asked this person, why is this happening to me? His body was all swollen up and was in great pain. Why is this happening to me? And he said that the only reason why this could be happening to you is because you have destroyed something which is dear to the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan. As soon as he heard that, he stopped his army in Vrindavan from destroying the rest of the Radha Govinda temple. And that is why, to this day, we still have whatever is left of that temple. And then Maharaj was explaining in the lecture that as a result to this offense by Aurangzeb, very soon a great king, a very pious king called, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, he came and his kingdom flourished, and then he started to wage war against the Mughals. And it's explained, it's written that as Aurangzeb was dying, as Aurangzeb was leaving this world, he was actually cursing Shivaji and his army. And he was saying, it was my negligence, my lack of being alert. Because I was not alert, Shivaji, he's actually defeating me and he's actually conquering me, and there's nothing I can do about it. And as he was saying this, he passed away from this world. So Maharaj was explaining, this is the reaction to offending Vaishnavas in this world, offending Brahmas, offending Vaishnavas in this world. That one leaves this world in a very terrible situation. We can't even imagine what Aurangzeb's destination was after he left his body. But these Shastras, which were protected by the Vaishnavas, so Srila Prabhupada mentions later on in the Purport, and before as well, we were talking about the Shastras which were created. They talk about generally speaking, Vedas talk about the 3 modes of material nature. But our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, they have not given us the Vedas. They have given us the Vedanta, which is the essence of the Vedas. They have given us, especially followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have given us the crest jewel of transcendental knowledge, which is how we can have that loving relationship with Krishna in the topmost rasa, falling in the moods of the gopis. So I came across a really nice story. This, and I'll finish with this story, but it tells us that whatever has been written by our acharyas in books like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Hari Bhakti Vilas, all the books written by Raghunath Das Goswami, and then coming in the disciplic succession, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and our Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur as well, they are completely bona fide. And how is this? So what happened one day at Radha Kund? What happened is that Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and Rupa Goswami, they were discussing Shastra. And in the course of discussing, Rupa Goswami at that time, he was writing one book where he was glorifying the residents of Vrindavan, and specifically in one verse, Rupa Goswami was glorifying Srimati Radharani through different metaphors, through different analogies. So he was explaining that the complexion of her skin is golden, just like, really bright, beautiful looking gold. He explained that, so Srimati Radharani, her sari is blue in color. So he was comparing her sari to be like a beautiful blue lotus flower. So that we can meditate on these things and we can get an appreciation of the actual beauty of these Brajabasis. And then, as part of that same shlok that Rupa Goswami was writing, he compared Radharani's hair, her veni. What do you call that in English? Braids, plaits. Her plaits, he was comparing that plait to a cobra, a black cobra. A shiny black cobra. Now, when Sanatan Goswami, he read this verse, because oftentimes, the Goswamis, when they wrote something, they would share with each other. What do you think about this? To get their opinion. So, Rupa Goswami, he shared that with Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami, he read that verse, and everything is okay, but this comparing Srimati Radharani's hair to a black cobra, it doesn't sit well with me. So, he was thinking like this, and then he went and it said that he went to Govinda Kund nearby, and he went for snan, he went to take a bath. Now, as Sanatan Goswami was thinking about this verse that he had just read, and he was taking his bath at Govinda Kund, all of a sudden at a distance, he saw a couple of young girls. And one girl, she was on a swing. They were facing the other way. They were facing Govardhan Hill, and they were playing. And all of a sudden, behind these young girls, Sanatan Goswami saw one black cobra actually coming and approaching. And he's from a distance, right? He's just taken his bath. He thinks, I should run over there and I should warn these young girls that there's a big black cobra that's approaching them. So immediately, he dries himself and he starts running towards them, and he warns them, young girls, there's a big black cobra. It's coming behind you. Watch out, watch out. And then as he gets closer and closer to these young girls, he actually realizes that cobra is actually the braid of these young girls. And as he gets closer to these young girls, one of the young girls who is on a swing, she actually looks back at him, back at Sanatan Goswami. She smiles and she disappears. And then he realizes that young girl was none other than actually Srimati Radharani herself. And then he gets the realization that this is the power of Rupa Goswami. That as he is writing these descriptions, he's actually seeing these residents in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. And whatever metaphors or whatever analogies he's giving for us, for our benefit to meditate on them, is verily the case. Because he was a bit skeptical. How can you compare the hair to cobra? And then he himself mistook the hair to be a cobra. So we can really have deep appreciation for the Shastras that our Goswami Acharyas has left for us, actually. So it's our responsibility, because here we're talking about yagya. We understand in Bhagavad Gita that yagya is part of our prescribed duties, and prescribed duties are, as mentioned in the 3rd chapter, prescribed duties are mentioned in the Vedas. But the crux of the Vedas, which has been protected by the Vaishnavas since more than 500 years ago, and even before that, Veda Vyas, he very mercifully wrote the Shastra in written form so that we here in Kali Yuga can read and discuss and remember the Shastra. So we have the opportunity, by the grace of our Acharyas in the disciplic succession, to read and discuss these books, as well as Srila Prabhupada as well, for mercifully translating them from Sanskrit into English so that we can understand them as well. So I'll finish here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. I don't know where that comes from, but I know it's there in Srila Prabhupada's Shloka book, so I'll have to look it up. I'm not sure where that line. Does anyone know where that comes from? Tasmin tushte jagat tushte. No? Okay, I'll check Prabhu and get back to you. But Brahma, he was there in Daksha Yagya. Brahma and Lord Shiva was there. So at the start of this chapter, you'll read that two persons didn't get up. One was Brahma and one was Lord Shiva. Of course, Daksha can't say anything to Lord Brahma. That's his father. But he said to his brother, and at the same time, he was his son-in-law as well. Very difficult situation. Your brother is also your son-in-law. At the same time, not only these two relationships, at the same time, Lord Shiva has his own tattva, his Shiva tattva. So there's no way you can compare Lord Shiva to Daksha as well. He's a representative, a direct representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Daksha forgot himself. That specific line is mentioned in one of Prabhupada's purports, that those great souls who are present in this yagya, they forgot themselves. They forgot their positions, and that's why they started to engage in cursing and counter-cursing. The only person who didn't forget himself was Lord Shiva. And that's why he set the example by just getting up and just leaving. Anything else? Okay. Canto 8 Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Okay, we'll finish it. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.